We're back with another installment of Odds and End Zones on BGN Radio. You have myself, Shamus Clancy, and I'm joined as always by Zo. Zo, what's up, my man?
What's up, brother? How you feeling?
Okay. I went to the game Sunday. It was a nice day. I expected there to be a bigger Chiefs contingent there.
Yeah. Well, we have a Chiefs bar
where
here too, right? Is there a Chiefs bar?
Yeah, in South Philly, Big Charlie Saloon. Used to live right by there. And maybe they were just all watching there, but I expected, they only come to town once every 8 years or whatever it is. So I thought there'd be a nice crowd there. And then obviously Andy being back there and that connection too. Yeah. But it was okay. And the game was fun. You kind of go in with low expectations. And, I talked about this on the podcast earlier in the week on From the Bleachers. It's probably a little too hard on both the team and Sirianni in particular in that show. But at the same time, that the fact that you're in a game kind of changes your perception of what your initial expectations were. If they go out there and they're down 17-3 at the end of the first quarter, it's like you throw your hands up in the air and say, hey, that's kind of what we expected to happen. But if you're up 10-7, if you're getting into the red zone and not actually punching the ball in, if you're in goal-to-go situations, you're not punching the ball in multiple times and settling for field goals and punts in situations where you need to be firing on all cylinders, taking every risk and chance you can to beat a team of that caliber, especially when your defense isn't getting a single stop in the world, and you have Alex effing Singleton, a linebacker, playing against Tyreek Hill, maybe the most explosive player in the history of the league. That's when you want to pull your hair out watching the game. And it is one game, if you look at it from the beginning of the season, hey, you might have thought they were going to lose the San Francisco game and potentially the Dallas game and for sure the Kansas City game. So it is what it is. But watching it and living it in real time kind of sucked. But in an inverse crazy way, I think this is a week 5 down in Carolina that before the season, like, okay, this is where they're going to get their second or maybe third one of the season right here. And this team's 3-1. Joe Brady, the former play caller for that historically great LSU team with Joe Burrow won the Heisman, has Sam Darnold looking awesome. And I thought Sam Darnold was a scrub. It's an indictment once again, of Adam Gase for sure. But I think it might say more even about Joe Brady than it says how terrible Adam Gase was. And I think Matt Rule, has that Philly connection with Temple. I think he's that great leader of men, executive type head coach. So I don't really know what this identity of this Carolina team is going to be. They obviously have a lot of skill position talent. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey is going to play right now. It looks like no, but even if Chuba Hubbard plays, he's quite talented as well. And someone I've talked about in the past during the pre-draft process, someone who I could have been interested the Eagles taking. So I think they have a lot of weapons. They haven't been using our guy, Temple guy, I think Jersey guy, Robbie Anderson a lot. Yeah. But we'll see. That only means because he's playing a Philly team that he's going to have, that Quez Watkins line of 2 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown, right?
Yeah. Well, they also, on the defensive side of the ball, they're very zone heavy. So you wonder how their newest acquisition as of 16 hours ago, Stephon Gilmore is going to acclimate, but he's really good, in space, and he's a good tackler. So I think he won't have any trouble there. The other side of that is, he may get 1 or 2 practices in this week. I'm sure they're going to.
I think he might be on PUP. I don't know if he can play.
So
too. Can they take him off because he's on a different team?
So that I don't know specifically. The other thing I'm still unsure about that specific rule because he's still technically for New England he was still on PUP. So
we're not CBA guys. We're just having fun, guys.
Yeah, please, we are not CBA guys. We're just talking shop. But even without Gilmore, I know they lost J.C. Horn with the crazy broken foot.
Yeah, that was insane. Yeah.
But that defense, the defense is still formidable. They gave Dak and Zeke and those guys at least a good fight up until the third and fourth quarter last week. And they got, DJ Moore, another Philly guy on the offensive side of the ball. He's been having a good couple of games, and Sam Darnold's playing with a lot of confidence. Ironically, it is speaking of Joe Brady, like Sam Darnold had 2 rushing touchdowns last week, which is nice.
Like Lamar.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, all right. So Sam Darnold is their best running back, I guess. But they're still a team. Even at 3-1, we still don't know a lot about them. And I think this is a game, if you're the Birds going down there, this is a game where, this is one for the cat. You go down focused and see if you can maybe steal one. Carolina's a tough place to play for anybody. Like I don't see. I know that in general they have their fans are really loud, passionate, and they play really tough at home, just like most teams. So
you got Sir Purr out there amping them up,
right? Yeah, banging the drum and stuff. So I don't have. My immediate read is it's going to be. I think it'll be a weird game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Birds came out firing on all cylinders and were in it and then eventually won it. But I also am not surprised if Sam Darnold decides to throw for 300 yards or whatever. I feel like it's been that kind of season for this Eagles defense so far.
What I'm concerned about, I think Brian Burns, their pass rusher, is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I think he's a future All-Pro, if not a guy who's going to get buzz like this season. And if Lane's not playing, if Mailata plays and is banged up, and I will say Andre Dillard, who I've buried a lot in the past, has played really well through 2 games, I think. So I want to give him his flowers. Like, I know a lot of media members are tough on him. I know BGN in general specifically has been tough on him. And I will say that as a guy who hasn't played football for nearly 2 years, I thought he played really well against Dallas and again against Kansas City. So I will say that, but I think Brian Burns is pretty awesome. And even if Mailata plays and is still a little banged up, that could be a difficult matchup.
Yeah.
But one thing I did like, you said, I think I could see the Eagles coming out and maybe getting a quick touchdown and field goal, getting 10 or 13 points in the first quarter. But you saw something like that against Kansas City, a team where you thought the Eagles might be a little bit overmatched. They came out, had a good early game script. And I did see the Eagles' first quarter. I don't know about them winning this game. I feel like it might end up being one of those crazy, funky scores, 26-23 either way. But Eagles' first quarter was plus 130. And I think that's a little intriguing. If you're not really keen on doing the Eagles' money line, I don't really like that. Eagles plus 3.5, which I feel like is that's a teams that seems somewhat evenly matched on the road. That kind of feels like a toss-up line. But I do like the Eagles first quarter plus 130 if you're going to throw some action specifically on the Eagles winning at any point in the game. I
could see them leaving the fourth quarter up, 10-3 or 14-7, something crazy like that. They had a really fast start last week, which was great. I think we can. I'm not sure if I want to bank on them having another fast start, but I can definitely see them putting up some points. Like they get Gainwell and Booby in space. Then we're really talking. Once they can get that short pass game going, and maybe they get a couple of bubble screens to Quez and Rager, knock on wood. But I think that it's certainly not out of the question. I think if you take that plus 130 in the first quarter, and even if you just bank on the defense having a little bit more pride and maybe getting a couple of key stops, maybe even turnover, you can you say, all right, well, maybe we'll end the first quarter up 7-3 and still a win.
Yeah, I like when you brought up Sanders and Gainwell going into last week's show. We thought there was going to be a huge overcorrection from Nick Sirianni's offense of whether the team's going to run the ball or not, run the ball more, because between Miles had 2 carries against Dallas, Kenny only had 1, I believe, and then Jalen had some. Those aren't all really designed true runs. And there were more against Kansas City. I think Miles carried 7 times, but only for 13 yards. Kenny was a little bit more successful, but still rarely running the ball.
Yeah.
And I talked about this again on an earlier podcast this week on From the Bleachers, but there was legitimate run the ball chant from tens of thousands of people in the stadium. I've never heard something like that before. And I'm left wondering if Miles Sanders is a holdover from a previous coaching regime. Howie Roseman's still in charge. Howie Roseman's the draft guy. But I'm left wondering, and you saw that how much Gainwell was used in the passing game. I think he had 58 receiving yards, I believe, against Kansas City. Is he Sirianni's guy, and Sirianni's a little reluctant to make him that, true number 1 running back, and he knows that Miles is talented, but maybe just isn't seeing it? And I see the lines of Miles is over-running rushing yards is 46.5, and it's minus 115 either way. I wouldn't touch over him on rushing yards at all, and we see Gainwell plus 230 touchdown, those odds are better than Miles's.
Yeah.
I would hit that Gainwell touchdown thing rather touching a single thing with Miles right now, because I'm not even sure how the coaching staff use him. I know the fans like him. He has a lot of home run potential. He showcased that in his first 2 seasons. Wasn't great as a pass catcher as in his sophomore season, but was really good in his rookie season in 2019. Yep. So I have no idea what to make of him myself, let alone what the coaching staff thinks of him.
I saw a couple people mention this, and I agree. I don't know if he's the guy that this coaching staff is going to hitch their wagon to. Like you said, like he's a previous regime pulled over. I mean, they love Gainwell. That's very clear. And it seems like when they need a spark, when they need a play, Gainwell's the one who's in there. It's not Miles. And I don't think I think it's just an indictment on really how they feel about Miles right now. And I don't know if I saw someone saying, like, what if they trade him, or what if he, requests a trade, anything like that. Like, I don't know if we're in that territory yet, but I do think that I do earnestly think that Gainwell is the guy who they trust at least to give them what they need in the run game. And as little as they rely on the run, unfortunately right now, Gainwell is the guy who's been taking a lot of those opportunities.
He reminds me of a player, and I'm not saying the same caliber of player, but I'm talking about usage, especially in contrast to an established running back on the team. It reminds me of when Westbrook first started getting some run with the Eagles in 2002 and 2003. And Deuce Staley was the established guy. Yep. He's had some 1,000-yard rushing seasons, had some great moments in Midnight Green, and the franchise fan base loved him. But because of the versatility of Brian Westbrook, and again, Kenny Gainwell isn't Brian Westbrook. I would bet he never is. I think Brian Westbrook is a guy, if he played, I did a podcast this over the summer, if he played today, he's a Hall of Famer. So I'm not saying that. But this guy who has this juice, electricity, there's something so intriguing about his skill set that he's creepily taking over for an established guy who still is pretty good in his own regard.
And I think that the other point about that is I always feel like so running back is becoming increasingly more devalued, at least first round pick type running back, because you can get a really good back in third, fourth round, maybe sometimes even fifth, depending on
Gainwell right there.
Right, depending on how deep the draft is. But I think those guys also, there's something to those guys coming from multiple back systems. Like you look at the Georgia running backs, all those guys came in with not a ton of tread on them because they all came from multiple back systems, right? So, you look at a guy like a Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb, like all those dudes are still turning and burning, because when they were in college, they were the feature back that wasn't the feature back. Like they shared the backfield. They also they kept a lot of that wear and tear off of them, because really the shelf life on a running back is, man, what, 2 seasons, 3 seasons? Like
you're hoping for 2, 1,300 yards from scrimmage seasons on a day 3 pick, and that's a win.
And then you're cooked, right? You get right,
and then you're drafting that guy every 2, 3, 4 years.
Literally, easily. That's easily. And then maybe even if you get 3 years, you consider yourself lucky. Like if I get a third year where you get me 1,100 rushing and 1,000 receiving, I'm calling it a win and telling you, nice, have a good rest of your career. But that's really the world we're living in right now, where you just can't live with one feature back. Like a multiple back system is how you win. It's how you're gonna win. The good teams, great teams are starting to do it, and it's something that starts even from the high school level on up. Like the multi-back system is where a lot of teams are finding pay dirt.
I wonder when we'll start seeing more prop bets for Gainwell. I think there might have been in week 1 or week 2, but we haven't seen it the last 2 weeks. And whether that's a prop that's just receiving yards for him, or sometimes they do have the numbers that are receiving and rushing yards combined. I think for Miles this week, I saw on DraftKings it's 68.5, which is outrageous for a guy who wasn't a pass catcher this year and has had 9 carries through 2 games for under 35 yards total.
I would not touch that at all.
we still see Jalen Hurts consistently being the Eagles' leading rusher, though.
Yep.
He was at 47 rushing yards against Kansas City, and the over-under, I believe, was 49.5. So that's the second straight week he didn't hit that. But you see this week his probably just going off of last week, what happens if Jalen's throwing the ball but also makes some moves when he's dropping back and hit some runs is 46.5. And I feel like that's a push almost at 46, 47 yards. That's kind of what you're expecting. I think that's a very fair line. And
for sure.
I'm almost at the point where I'm probably not going to hit it either way, but I'm almost thinking like he might be a 44, 45 guy. And I think the passing yards line this week, and maybe it's an overcorrection or overreaction to last week where he had 387 yards against Kansas City, but his over-under on passing yards, 242.5. And whether that's the Eagles, if the Eagles are going to be in this game, and based on the play calling and situational usage from Nick Sirianni, Hurts is going to be probably throwing the ball the most of the time. And then if you want to look at it a little bit more pessimistically compared to what happened against Kansas City, if they're behind, he's obviously going to be throwing the ball a ton.
Yeah.
I think he might get closer to that. He's going to be closer to 300 yards, I think, than 250 yards.
And I think the other thing about that is right now they're a team that has to cater to what their opponent is doing. Yeah. So, Kansas City got into their run and gun, their air raid, and immediately you saw exactly what they did on the offensive side of the ball. They immediately got Jalen out and started, throwing it all over the place. So I think it really does depend on, one, if they come out firing, and I think they're just going to let Jalen churn and burn. And two, if unfortunately, if Sam Darnold goes up 2 touchdowns quickly, then you're going to find yourself having to throw the ball over the place. So right now they are, and that's a philosophical thing for another podcast. But right now they're just not a team that's dictating what they do. The other teams dictating what they do. So if it turns into a straight out slobber knocker, I feel like we're going to see a lot of passing yards. Or if it turns into just a defensive struggle, we might see a little bit more of Miles and Gainwell, getting their little 4 or 5 yard runs per carry. So I think it really depends on how Carolina comes out.
I've been noticing the last couple of weeks, DraftKings has these weekly specials on there, and I hit one before. I mean, by hit it, I mean I bet on it. I don't think I actually hit the bet.
Yeah.
One. But this week, I think they're a little bit of a ripoff when you evaluate it compared to another book, and it's just kind of a spicy thing that you see and you want to bet. It's Sam Darnold, who I think you said rushed for 2 touchdowns last week. Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts to both have over 0.5 rushing touchdowns. And that's plus 500. You're saying, oh, that seems cool. And I remember one of the past was Jalen rushing touchdown and Devonta receiving touchdown at 500. I was like, oh, this is fun. I'll do this. But comparing, that's plus 500. $10 to win $50. But on FanDuel, if you use their same game parlay, it's if you did a Sam rushing touchdown or an anytime touchdown, and Jalen a rushing or anytime touchdown, that's plus 786. So I will say I like DraftKings book the best. We don't have any affiliation with a specific book here, so it's not one of those types of things. But I will say be wary of those little specials you might see of DraftKings or even Fox Bet, these boosts and things like that, and shop around a little bit because that's something I don't do enough. If I'm doing a little parlay, I should, contrast it to the Fox Bet, FanDuel, even Barstool app, those types of things.
Yeah, I'm also a victim of that. Like I tend to, find one horse and stick with it. But to everyone, I definitely suggest shopping around and seeing, picking one thing you like and seeing how everyone else is playing it. Check your Fox Bets, check your Bet MGM, see who has it, see who got something different. I know recently, as far back as the beginning of this NFL season, Bet MGM has been going hard in the paint with a bunch of different things, and most recently, like build your own parlay. It's a cool option that they have. They also have, just like everybody else, that the money back feature depending on how much you wager. So definitely, especially for us, we don't, like I said, we don't have any affiliation with any of them. Definitely shop around because it's also money you're spending weekly. So, if you're throwing a little $20, $30, sometimes 50 on NFL Sunday. Like, see how much you can make that stretch. Maybe get a little bit more strategic about stuff, do a little bit more, research the night before or the day of, see, who's playing, who's deactivated. Like you saw last week, so many game time decisions. So we're in that phase of the NFL season where guys are literally now week to week, like concussion protocols. And, I just saw today, right before we hopped on, Baker Mayfield has a partially torn labrum.
What?
So, yeah.
Who's their backup?
They said no surgery, but yeah, I would, if you're someone listening, and free fantasy advice as well. If you have Baker in fantasy, double check who the Browns backup is.
I got Kareem. That might be a good game.
Oh yeah,
for him or Chubb.
For both, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. This Browns.
I forgot what show they said. There's definitely a partially torn.
Oh my God! Guess who their backup quarterback is? The Eagles played him in the 2017 season.
Wait, who is it?
Case Keenum. that was the quarterback for the Vikings, and the last game the Zodiac Killer ever watched.
God. The last game,
the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah, our guy watched. Gary, the Zodiac Killer.
His profile picture is a stinking Vikings hat on, and Nick Foles killed the Zodiac Killer.
Yo, the Foles legend, BDN. Thank you. The legend grows. He killed the Zodiac Killer.
That made my day yesterday, and then seeing that it's Case Keenum now just gave me that laugh all over again.
The internet is so good. The memes were already so funny, and then when it came out that he was also a Vikings fan, that made me holler. I was laughing.
That's the best thing that's ever happened
all night. I was like, this is very, 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 very awesome. The only thing that would have made it better is if he was in a Vikings hat and a damn Karl Anthony Towns jersey or something like that.
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler jersey.
Changed his pick.
Yo, that's so funny. Yeah, man, our guy. Kev Stefanski has his work cut out for him. I don't know if the NFL players are machines, but they haven't even ruled him out. They just said he won't need surgery, so he's gonna play on it. But I mean, dude, you can only lift one of your arms right now, so I can't imagine how good he sucked before that. So I can't imagine how good he's gonna be now. Dude. Like, did you see? That's why I try to be very careful about my Jalen critiques, because we could easily be staring at a Baker Mayfield who is just terrible right now. Pre-injury, like there's passes. I mean, he had OBJ wide open like 6 times last week, and the ball was on the other side of the field. Like I can't imagine what that conversation was like afterwards.
I want to close up looking at one line and one player, and I think he was the greatest hope going into this season for the Eagles, and he had his first true breakout game against Kansas City. Devonta Smith had 7 catches for 122 yards. Chef's kiss. That's exactly what you wanted to see from Devonta in this huge game, going up against a team that made the last 2 Super Bowls, won one. One of the best coaches, QBs, tight ends, receivers ever on that side of the ball on offense for their offense, and he balled out to keep the Eagles in that game. His line is set at 60.5 receiving yards. And I don't bet on a lot of the things we talk about it, but it's nice to talk about. Maybe I would do a little parlay where I do Smith receiving yards and a Gainwell touchdown. I really like that. And Devonta hasn't scored since week 1. He might be overdue for a touchdown himself. Had one called back against Kansas City. And I think that's a situation where I think he hits that comfortably. I'm thinking maybe an 85, 90-yard game from him.
I would even say, definitely without J.C. Horn, and maybe probably without Gilmore, I think he could get another triple-digit day. But definitely, I think he definitely eclipses that mark, maybe 70, 80 comfortably. Hopefully, maybe even by third quarter. But last week, it was more of what he's been doing, all season. Really, just him and Jalen just had a much.
I feel like that connection was finally clicking.
Yeah, I was going to say that connection literally was finally clicking, and it helped. So it was good to see him. He's crisp on his routes. He was fighting. He's wiry, but he's strong. So he was very strong in his movements, and Jalen was just finding him. touchdown being called back obviously was a game changer and sucked, but I think he's going to have a lot more opportunities for that in this game. So I would definitely bet. I would hit the over on that extremely hard.
Yeah, so this is if I'm going to do one bet this week, I like this little same game parlay I have right now. It's a Kenny Gainwell anytime touchdown,
Yep.
Smith anytime touchdown, and then Smith over, and then this is on FanDuel. The 60.5 line is on DraftKings, but FanDuel has them at 59.5, and that would be plus 15.93, $10 to win $159.30. We're no experts. We like to have fun here, keep it lively, keep it light.
Yeah.
But that is one thing I'm very intrigued by right now.
Yeah, like I do like. I'm in love with the Gainwell anytime touchdown. I think
Miles still has better odds right now, and if you took away what they've done in the past,
right,
the draft positioning, the rookie status, third-year vet status, you would think Kenny Gainwell is the feature back here.
And I think that I would love to know how teams are game planning for them now, because like we talk about it, and the people way smarter than us talk about it, but the Eagles right now are a team that doesn't really have an offensive identity. Right? So like if your team is just game planning, like what do you even game plan for? Like are you saying like we got to take Gainwell out of the game, or we got to take Sanders out of the game? I think a lot of times teams are saying, all right, so we know Devonta Smith it looks like he's their guy, so we key on him. We'll put our best cover corner on him. And outside of that, we'll just keep everything else in front of us, which for the most part has worked. The Chiefs were their defense is so anyway when they were without one of their best pass rushers last week. But still, it looks like at least right now the teams are saying keep everything in front of us and keep Devonta Smith off tilt. And if I'm a guy like Gainwell, I'm taking full advantage of that. Yeah. That means that you're going to let me operate in space a little bit. So I'm going to take my little dink and dunk 5 yards and try to turn it into 50 every play. And he's a guy who I think can do that. I mean, we've seen it. He did it a bunch of times at Memphis. I think he's a guy who can definitely, rip it and run it once he's got a little bit of space to operate.
Close up. You got any college bets for Saturday for us?
Let me see. I was talking to a friend about something. The one thing I'll give you 2 games that straight out, or outright, excuse me. So the game of the week, Iowa versus Penn State. Shout out to all of our Penn State guys.
Definitely some listening to this podcast.
Some listen to this podcast. We love them. I actually think I believe a lot in the Nittany Lions this year. Iowa's got the 3rd ranked defense in the country. They're mean and nasty. A bunch of strong dudes on that defense that will punch you in the mouth. But I don't know. This Penn State team looks a lot different to me. So I like Penn State. I would take Penn State in the points. And the other game of the week. 1 second. We'll make sure I got my research right. Make sure what time it is. If it's Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, so it is Saturday. College game day is actually going to be, I think they're there. Oh, I forget. But anyway, Georgia and Auburn. Georgia, number 2 ranked team in the country. They are another team that they have the number 1 ranked defense in the country. A bunch of 5 stars and guys who will just knock your head off on that side of the ball. They're playing Auburn, who also has a really, really good defense. And I feel like saying SEC and good defense, like saying the sky's blue, but still, like they're both really, really good defenses. And that Auburn offenses can score some points. So it's gonna be a really fun game. But I like Georgia in the points in that one too. I don't know, they're playing different as well. So I feel like this is the year we see something different from Georgia and Penn State. So those are my 2 to stick with. But again, we're just guys talking shop. So if you lose money,
if you lose money on me, that's your problem to begin with. Who's your college football playoff right now? Bama, Georgia, whoever wins this Iowa Penn State game, and then I feel like that's
and you know what? I got Bama, Georgia, the winner of this Iowa Penn State game, and I like Cincinnati, man.
I know people complain about non-Power 5 true blue blood schools in there, but throw them in there. You know what I mean? One of the best the second best college football game of my lifetime was because they threw Boise State in the BCS in the Fiesta
They're
Bowl,
so
right?
much fun, and you know what? And it's not their fault. They beat who they play.
They have a really good quarterback. Like I think he can put up points. Like,
Yeah, the quarterback's really good, and they beat Notre Dame. Like they're fun, man. They're a fun team. Like until they prove you otherwise, let them in. Like that. That's my playoff right there. And I certainly think Cincinnati deserves it. They're not again, they're not they're nobody's Cinderella. Like they play their offense that puts up points. Their defense does enough. They have their marquee win. So until they go out and poop the bed, I would ride with them as my fourth team.
You have an incredible amount of non-blue blood schools in the top 15 right now. You have
isn't that crazy?
Coastal at 15, who's undefeated at 5-0. BYU at 10, undefeated at 5-0. And then again, Cincinnati at number 5. Ahead of Cincinnati's 5 at 4-0, ahead of a 6-0, or should I say 5-0 Oklahoma team.
Also, and then that whole one, like you got San Diego State's there, SMU is in there.
San Diego State 25, SMU is 24.
24. Yeah, like there's
and then even like schools that you don't think of as football schools. Wake Forest is 19. Kentucky's 16 at 5-0.
Kentucky's 16.
And Wake's 5-0.
A lot of these teams have played these teams have all played people.
Yeah.
These are true. A lot of these teams like Kentucky and SMU, like they play actual teams, and those are true 4-0 and 5-0s. It's just a year where. So I was talking about this with a friend of mine. This is actually a good spot to kind of wrap things up, but it's long gone are the days where just your high school talent was just in one part of the country.
Yes.
Like these kids are so talented now, and they all have so many varying degrees of skill set and expertise that if you're good, a college will find you. So yes. If you get looked over by Alabama or Georgia, all is not lost anymore, because here comes a Boise State or SMU saying, yo, we love you. We're going to let you ride for 4 years. You can come in and start as a freshman. And guys, that's appealing to guys. You go to Alabama as a 5-star, you might not see the field until your junior year.
You might not see the field ever.
And even ever. There's a bunch of guys who graduate who are I came in 5-star. And then, the most I played was, that I played 6 games my junior year, and I played, 4 games my senior year. That stuff happens in those things. So I feel like the colleges are getting a lot more smarter. The playing field is even out as far as the haves and the have-nots in terms of, what schools have, in terms of facilities and fields, what they can offer. It would be. I watch one of my guilty pleasures on TikTok is watching the what a lot of the high school prospects do on their official college visits. Yeah. And you should see these kids go to pick any non-blue blood school, and you just take a look at the facilities these places have. Say wow, it's a D1 school. We're not SEC or ACC, but we're still D1. You come here, you still live in lavish for 4 years, and we still get scouts that come to our pro days and stuff like that. So, I just feel like the playing field is level, and that's what you're seeing now. Is that the top 25 is evidence of that.
Incredible analysis of the college game. Expected nothing less. That wraps up for you. We're about 35 minutes in here. This is a good run right here. Right. Zo, anything else you want to say? I think let's close it up. Be back next week. We'll figure out a recording schedule for next week, because the Eagles do play on Thursday. We usually record on Thursdays, Wednesdays, so I think we might try to get something either later in the week or potentially maybe even Friday. We'll Friday. Friday might be a nice little change to kind of do a Sido instant reaction show.
Nice little change of pace. That actually might be good, especially all of our takes will be fresh, all the game tape and all that stuff. So might do a little Friday.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Keep bleeding green, Zo. Thank you. We'll be back next week. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff on your podcast platform choice. Also, we do record these videos and put them up on YouTube. So subscribe to the BGN YouTube channel, easily to find online, and there'll be a link to it in the podcast description. Talk to you next week.
Peace.
Hoping for a win.